This week's Supersetman poll results are in, and most of you wanted to see Big Ramy at the 2023 Arnold Classic versus Nick Walker at the 2024 New York Pro. But don't worry if you voted for the other options, because if this video gets 777 likes, we'll make the second most voted option, and so on until all the videos are done. It's unlikely we're ever going to see Big Ramy on stage again, but the last time we saw him, he wasn't as bad as most people remember. It was at the 2023 Arnold Classic when he actually came back in much better form than at the disastrous 2022 Mr. Olympia a couple of months prior. At this Arnold show, he controversially placed 4th. Nick Walker took 2nd at that show, but since most people would agree that version of Nick was better than his recent 2024 New York Pro version, the comparison between that Big Ramy and the New York Pro Nick becomes intriguing. Front double biceps. Even though Nick Walker does not have an ideal overall flow in this pose, he's the more complete bodybuilder from top to bottom. He dominates the arm department, and downstairs he puts Ramy to shame when it comes to details and separation. However, Ramy puts him to shame when it comes to size. Ramy also has the better V-taper. He actually has a small waist proportional to the rest of his physique. However, the downsized arms, in contrast with Nick's world-class guns, are too much of a weakness. Big Ramy just looks too unbalanced here. Arms too small, quads too big and too soft. It's like everything Ramy is lacking. Nick is world class. For me, this is a 2-point win for the mutant. Front lat spread. Nick's weakest pose. He did improve this pose at his last showing, but it still remains his weakest. Comparing him to Big Ramy is perfect for seeing why Nick's front lat is so weak. His legs are overpowered in size by his upper body. He's got a wide waist and pretty narrow clavicles. Having shorter arms is also a disadvantage in this pose, as they tend to cover the lats. On the other side, Ramy has broad shoulders, and combined with his tight waist and huge quads, give him a crazy X-frame effect. Now, of course, Nick has better conditioning and overall details, especially through the quads and abs. But in my opinion, this is a 2-point win for Big Ramy overall. Side chest. Now, if we look at the arm development, Nick Walker is the clear winner, but as for the overall pose, I believe Big Ramy has him beat. The chest goes to Ramy, as Nick's is still pretty flat and a weakness for him. The side leg goes to Ramy all day. That's the best side leg in history, period. I would go on and say this is a standard 2-point win for Ramy. Remember that the 1-point subtle wins are for poses that almost could go either way. And the way I see it, the side chest is Big Ramy all day. This used to be his signature pose and probably still is. Back double biceps. Big Ramy's weakest pose, we all know why this is his weakest pose, is because of his melted lower half of the back, mainly the lower lats. The lower body is another big factor, as Ramy's hamstrings are too smooth, especially opposed to Nick's crazy detailed hams. If we're counting the guns too, which should be counted in a pose called double biceps, this becomes a decisive 3-point win for the mutant. Back lat spread. Yes, Nick wins the lower body but upper body. Despite Nick's improvements in this pose, I do think Ramy has him beat. Ramy's lacking lower lats are not an obvious glaring weakness here anymore, and his back looks more massive and also more detailed. It's not a blowout. I can still see a case for Nick to win the pose overall, counting his improved back and superior lower body, but I would give this a subtle 1-point win for Ramy. Side triceps. Even though the side leg advantage remains for Ramy, upper body things take a turn. Somehow Nick's chest looks the best in the side triceps pose, and he also exposes Ramy's smooth midsection too. When we look at the focal point of the pose, which is the lateral head of the triceps, we can see that Nick destroys Big Ramy, so this other side pose is a 2-point win for Nick now. Abs and thighs. Nick is upper body heavy while Ramy is bottom heavy. Neither of them looks ideal. I have to say that Ramy's quads look a bit better than in the front double. He's probably actually flexing them here, but as big and round as they look, they are too soft in comparison to Nick's. It's true that Ramy's are way bigger, but I do believe Nick has the better overall quads in this comparison. Nick also has the better defined abs. Overall, this is another 2-point win for the 2024 New York Pro winner. Most muscular. Indeed, Ramy looks like the more muscular guy in this comparison. He'll always be the most muscular. He's the ultimate mass monster, but Nick Walker makes him look off-season here. Nick is round and full and peeled on top of everything. Nick's round biceps and triceps pretty much seal the deal here for another standard 2-point win. This was a pretty dominant win for Nick Walker, and I'll tell you why. Walker is the most complete bodybuilder on the planet, muscle group by muscle group right now. In contrast, Ramy has too many weaknesses from this point of view. He's got atrophied arms and back, overpowering and soft quads, and inferior muscle separation and conditioning.